example 1 with a public static void main. Okay. Now, if you did, I purposely did not build this example with the extends and the implements stuff so that I could walk you through the process as well. So we want this to be a child of JFrame, so extends JFrame. And we would like to implement action listener so that we can listen to events in this class. Now, for now, both of those lines are red. To make the error disappear, I can simply go to the source menu and I can hit organize imports. And that will take care of the error situation for me, okay? And it incorporates both of them. Even when I save the file, I still have one red line. And the reason is because action listener is an interface. It has a method which is abstract. I have not yet coded that abstract method. That's why it's giving me a problem. So all I need to do is hover over my class and click on add unimplemented method. When I do that, it will add the action performed. And then we will start building our graphical user interface objects. Okay, cool. So now in this example, I need some labels. So I'll use JLabel for that. The whole idea of this example will be to take an input from the user and perform some calculations. So I need one label to give user some kind of a message saying, please enter a number, and another label to display, okay, this is where your output should be. And then I'll have my text field object, one to accept an input from the user, and the other one to display the result. Okay, so I will have these as well. So again, organize your imports, and you will have the JLabel and JText field added to your imports. Next, I need a button to reset my fields and another button to do my calculations. Again, organize your imports and let me know when you're done organizing your imports. Now it's time for me to write my constructor, which is where I will load all the properties of my class, which is my frame, which is a child of JFrame. And also, this is the place where I will be instantiating all my graphical user interface instances. So let me first instantiate these instances, and then we will add them in the order in which we want them to appear on our frame. So first, I'm instantiating all of my instances, my graphical user interface instances. Once I instantiate them, then I can add them to my frame. As we learned in the previous examples, at any given time, my frame can only hold and display one item, even though it's holding multiple items. So the best way to solve this problem is with the help of layout. And I will be using a layout that we have not yet used. It's called a grid layout. It will create a grid for you. So I'm creating a 3x2 grid. So I'm having 3 rows with 2 columns in each row. Again, you organize your imports to add the grid layout class to your list of imports. Once that is done, now I can start adding my graphical user interface items. The first item I add goes into the first box in the first row. Second item I add goes into the second box in the first row. My third item, since I can only have 2 items per row, automatically goes into the first item in the second row. And like that, it adds my item. So I want my label to come first. Then I want my text box in which I will be accepting my number. Then I want to add my reset button. Remember, the order in which you create them doesn't have to be the order in which you add them. Your add order can be different from your create order. And then I will add my result. And then I will add, finally, my text result. So this is how I'm adding these components onto my frame. Now it's time to set my frame properties, such as I want my frame to be visible. Otherwise, the frame will not be visible. I want my frame to be closable, so that upon closing, it must release all its resources. So that's why I need to set the close operation, exit on close. I will set the size. And I will set the title. And inside my main method, all I need to do is create an instance of this example. If you want to create an unnamed instance, all you need to do is type new, followed by the name of the class. And that's about it. You don't have to have a named instance if you don't want to use it anywhere after the line on which it is declared. So when I run this example, in the top left corner, it is a 300 by 150. That's the size. It has a label followed by a text field, 2 buttons, another label followed by another text field. So that's my setup. And I was able to make this happen because of my grid layout. Let me know. Now, I will add one more property on line number 36. Set location relative to null. So what this does is it will open your form right in the center of your screen. That's what line 36 does. Whatever is your screen size doesn't matter. It'll just open right in the middle of the screen. Got it? Okay. Now let's get back to line number 30, where we want these items to be able to respond to events. So in order for me to make my reset respond to event, I will add action listener. That means anytime somebody click on it, it will respond to this action by forwarding the request over to line 45, where action performed will deal with the problem. However, in this example, unlike the previous one, I have 2 buttons, and I want each one of my buttons to be able to calculate, to be able to respond to users' events. So I have 2 buttons, reset and calculate. Now, since I have 2 buttons, as I told you earlier in the chapter discussion, that now I need to be able to differentiate between my reset and the calculate button with the help of an if condition, so that it knows when the reset calls comes in to reset, when calculate calls comes in to calculate. So now I'm going down to action performed. In the action performed, I'll say, okay, if E, which is my action event object dot source equals to the reset button, then do this. Otherwise, if E dot get source equals to the calculate button, then do this, whatever is my next event. So this is how I can differentiate between which one of the 2 to do. If it is reset, then I want my number to be reset to nothing. I want my result, where my output is getting displayed, text to set to nothing. And I want my input text box to receive the blinking cursor. So I have to have the request focus on. And this is to let the cursor blink in that box. That's what the reset button will do. Shall we test this far? So I'm running my program. I will enter a number and I'll hit reset. Notice the cursor blinks in the box. Even if I click in a different box, upon reset, the cursor blinks in the top box. That's what these lines will do. So if you have something here and something here, reset will clear both of them and we'll have the cursor blinking in the top box. That's what it does. What do I want to do in the calculate? Let's say if I want to multiply the number by 2. Well, the problem is that the number entered in the text box is a string. So I can't really just multiply it by 2 until and unless I convert it into a number. So first of all, I will do this if condition in multiple steps, and then we will try to consolidate those steps into less steps. So first of all, for example, I can say string number will be that as the number comes in from the text box. So I'm reading the number. Now I need to have the actual number, which is the converted form of the number. So as we learned in the earlier chapters, that we can use the wrapper classes like double dot toString, double dot parse double to convert a string into a double. So that will be done by line number 53. Then I can do my calculations by taking my number and doing whatever I want to do with that number, like multiplied by 2, for example. Okay. So once I'm done with everything that I need to do, now it's time to put the output in the other text box, which is result. Again, I run into the same problem. I cannot put a number into a text box. So I can have another string called output equals to double dot toString. And now I can put my calculations there. And then I can call the text result dot set text, just like line number 48. And I will set the text to output. So output will be coming from line 55 into the text result. So notice I did 5 lines just to grab the input, convert it to the appropriate type, do my calculations, then convert it back into the string to put it into a text box. Again, all these 5 lines could very well be done in one line, and I'll show you that in steps. So for now, let's run this program. We'll enter a number and we'll calculate, and this will double the number. So let's do with smaller numbers, or as it multiplies the number by 2. So it just takes the number and multiplies by the number by 2, and that's all it does for now. Again, this is just a founding example. You could use this example to do any kind of calculations. Take an input, do whatever calculation, or take inputs and do calculations and go from there. Let me know when you're done this far. Okay. Now let's start consolidating the steps, okay? I could very well, instead of converting the double into a string and then putting into a string object to be used on line 56, I could just directly take this and put it here. And that way I will not even gonna need that. I won't need line 55. I could directly do that inside the set text. Take the variable, convert it to the string, and then store it in the set text. Store it into the text result as its property, text property, and does exactly the same thing. Let me know when you get this going. Okay. Also, instead of having to store the calculation in a separate variable, I could just do my calculations right here on line number 56, and I don't even need line number 54. And when you run it, you get to see the exact same output. Also, instead of having to take the string and convert it from a string object into a double object, I could very well do both of these things in one step. How am I going to do it? Let me do one step at a time. Let me first of all take this piece, which is converting a string into a double, okay, and replace the num with that. So I am taking a number, a string number, converting it into a double, multiplying it by 2, converting it back into a string, and then storing it into the set text. I'm doing all these operations in same step. So I can just comment out line 53. Don't need to do line 53. And run it, output will be exactly the same. Okay, now I can even eliminate having to use the string num. I could directly take the input from one text box, convert it into the double, multiply it, convert it back into the string, and then store it. So now if I run it, I get the exact same output as before. And I don't have to go through lines 52 through 55. But the reason I went through this process so that you could see how the different steps work, and then we can consolidate them into one long, more complicated instruction, but you do not need many placeholders. So this is more memory efficient example. Everything happens on a line. What you need to do gets done, and then it's discarded at the end of the process. You don't have to be holding several variables in memory. Now, another thing what we can do is, if we scroll back up to line number 32, okay? When the application starts, right from the beginning, we can request the focus right there. And then at the same time, we can make the result box set editable to false so that nobody can manually put a value in the result box. So now when I run this after that chain, notice the cursor is already blinking in the text box. I enter a value and hit calculate, and here it is. And the result box is disabled. Okay, now we will also add the text box txt num dot add action listener this. Okay, so we are adding the action listener also to the text box. That somebody should be able to hit enter after typing in the number inside the text box and be also able to calculate the result. Don't have to hit the calculate button all the time. So we would like to give two operations for the same operation, two ways of doing it. Once we do that, now let's come down. Once we add the action listener to the text box, we will come down to line 56 and we're going to add an OR. If source is calculate, or source is the text box that we have, which is txt num. So if either of the two items are the reason of you coming to else if, do the same stuff. So now when I enter a number and hit enter, it does the exact same thing if I were to click the button. Clicking the button will do the same thing as hitting the enter in the text field. But now I don't have to ever leave the text field. I could just stay in the text field and keep entering the numbers and keep erasing